Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and in Yirtz Hashem today we will be learning Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis. We continue to learn Hilchos Netillas Yadayim. The schus of limud HaTorah tonight should stand as a schus refuah shalema for Meir ben Chayei Sarah, who needs Rachamei Shamayim, and it should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael Hanusunim Bat Sarah Ubashivya Ha'imdim Bein Bayom Bein Bayabosha Hamakim Yerachem Aleihem B'chol Makim Shehem. The Rabbanim Shalom should be there for Gans Klal Yisrael and protect Gans Klal Yisrael. Yinei lo Yonav lo Yishan Shemei Yisrael. So we continue to learn Hilchos Netillas Yadayim, which is quite complex, as we've been seeing. And we pick up today on Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, Siman Kuf Samach Beis, Sif Beis, bottom line in the Shulchan Aruch on Nun Zayin Amud Aleph. Baruch Hashem, really what we're going to be learning today, after everything that we've been through, with all the nitty-gritty details of Netillas Yadayim and the mechanics that we've seen of Netillas Yadayim, really today should be relatively simple. So, says the Mechaber, bottom line, Nun Zayin Amud Aleph Sif Beis, Hanoitel Yadav, when somebody comes to wash his hands for Netillas Yadayim, what exactly should he do? Now, the assumption over here right now in the Mechaber is that you're coming to wash Netillas Yadayim with a revius. Remember, we learned in Siman Kuf Samach that the minimum shear of mayim for Netillas Yadayim is a revius. And one revius is enough for both of your hands. Indeed, we saw that really with a revius you could wash even two people's hands, right? That was the very complex Siman Kuf Samach Sif Yud Gimel. We said that really you could wash four hands with a revius. But over here, you're coming to wash the Netillas Yadayim. You have a kais that's machzik a revius. It has a revius of mayim in it. What do? Says the Mechaber. Hanoitel Yadav, when you come to wash the Netillas Yadayim, sheifech alehem ktsas mei ha-revius. The first thing that you do is you pour a small amount of the revius onto one hand. So you're going to pour a little bit of the revius onto your right hand. What's the purpose of that first pour? So what we're going to say now is going to take you by surprise, because until now we have always spoke about mayim harishonim, the first pour that removes the tumah from the hands, and then the mayim shniim that's mitaher the mayim harishonim. The mayim harishonim on your hands are themselves tameh. So you need the mayim shniim to be mitaher the mayim harishonim. That we've covered in great detail. But here at Sif Beis, we're going to find out about a third washing. But we're talking about that's going to be the first pour. So in the world of the Mechaber here in Sif Beis, what we've been talking about as mayim rishonim until now is really going to be the second pour. And what we have spoken of as mayim shniim are really going to be the third pour, because there's one pour that comes before even the mayim harishonim, and the purpose of that pour is to clean your hands. There's a worry, maybe you have a chatzitza on your hand. Maybe you have some dried dirt on your hand. And even if it's a miut, maybe it's a miut umakpid. Maybe it's a small amount of dirt, but it's a type of dirt and an amount of dirt that you're makpid on. You don't want to have it on your hands. We've learned that miut umakpid makes a chatzitza. So the Mechaber is going to tell us that when you come to wash the Netillas Yadayim, you have a revius of water. The first thing that you do is you pour a little bit of the water onto your hand in order to remove any possible chatzitzas. Then the second thing you do is pour the mayim harishonim. That takes the tumah off the hand. And then lastly, you have a third pour, which we call mayim shniim, but it's actually mayim shlishim according to this. And that's the mayim shniim that's mitaher the mayim harishonim. So we're introducing now kind of a prefatory pour, a first pour that comes before the mayim rishonim. And the purpose of it is to clean the hand from any possible chatzitzes. Now, I'm just going to give you a heads up, because you might be having a kasha in your mind right now. If the minimum amount of water that you need for the Netillas Yadayim is a revius, if you're using a little bit of that revius to clean your hands before you wash mayim rishonim and mayim shneim, so doesn't that mean that you're washing the Netillas Yadayim with less than a revius? Because again, we're saying now we're introducing a new pour that comes before the mayim rishonim, but we're still calling the mayim rishonim. So it sounds like Netillas Yadayim proper consists of mayim rishonim and mayim shneim. What we're saying is that before you wash mayim rishonim, you should have another pour to clean the hands in preparation of Netillas Yadayim. But does that count towards Netillas Yadayim? And if it does not count towards Netillas Yadayim, and you're using some of the revius, so how do you have a revius for Netillas Yadayim? So the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us that that first pour, which is coming to remove any possible chatzitzes, that first pour is considered part and parcel of Netillas Yadayim, and since it's a tzorich of Netillas Yadayim, it could come from the required revius. So I just dumped a lot of information on you. Now let's see it inside. So again, let's read from the beginning of Sif Beis. Netillas Yadav, when somebody comes to wash Netillas Yadayim, shoifach aleim ktsas mei revius. The first thing that he does is he should pour a little bit of the revius onto his hand. Lahasir mehem halichloch v'chol davar shechaytzitz, in order to remove from his hand any dirt and any possible chatzitzes. Okay, let's pause for a minute. Go back to the Zayin of Aleph. Let's see Mishnah Berurah is cutting your Zayin. Ktsas mei revius. You're going to pour a little bit of the revius for this purpose. Desher Netillas Yadayim hu loy pachas mi revius mayim l'shtei yadav. Because we learned that the minimum shear of mayim for Netillas Yadayim is a revius, but that one revius is enough for both hands. You could take one revius, and if you have another person available, you could hold out your hands, and this other person could pour the entire revius at one shot over both hands. Or if you're washing the Netillas Yadayim by yourself, you could take the revius, and you could do miktsas alachas, some of the revius on one hand, or miktsas al shniya, and the rest of the revius on the other hand. The chamavur le'el b'siman kof samach sif yud gimel. We saw this earlier already in siman kof samach sif yud gimel, where the mechaber says, what's the necessary amount of water for the Netillas Yadayim? A revius. And if you look in the Mishnah Berurah over there, the Mishnah Berurah says that one revius is enough for both hands, even if you wash one hand first and then the other. So 100%, both hands aren't getting a full revius. One hand is going to get approximately half a revius. The other hand is going to get approximately half a revius. That's fine. But let's say when you come to wash the Netillas Yadayim, your hands are a little bit dirty. And all you have is a revius. So we're not talking about somebody who's eating a tuna fish sandwich in his kitchen, and he has plenty of running water in the sink, and he can get as much water as he wants. We're talking about somebody who went on a Chalamoid trip, and he made sure to prepare a revius of mayim for the Netillas Yadayim, and now he's in the park, and all he has is a revius of mayim. And now he sees that his hands are a little bit dirty. So in that case, says, the Mechaber is telling me, if his hands are a little bit dirty, and he only has an exact revius available for the Netillas Yadayim, he should take a little bit of the revius mayim first, to remove any dirt that's a chatzitza. But nevertheless, even though he's using up a little bit of the revius to cleanse his hands, we don't look at it that he's using up some of the revius before Netillas Yadayim, and now he doesn't have the required share of a revius for Netillas Yadayim. No, we don't say that. The gamzel tzarich taras yadayim uba, because the water that he's using to clean his hand of a chatzitza, that's a tzarich Netillas Yadayim. And the minimum share of a revius of mayim, that whole revius is available for anything that's required for the Netillas Yadayim. So you need to take a chatzitza off your hand before you wash the Netillas Yadayim. You could use part of the revius for that, and we still consider it that you're using a full revius for the Netillas Yadayim. And he brings this down from the Lavush. V'ayin b'bir halacha. There's a lengthy bir halacha over here that goes into great details beyond the scope of what we do, but really, I think the very short 30,000 foot version would be that the Bir Halacha says this is of course true, what the Chavetz Chaim is writing here in the Mishnah Berurah. Nevertheless, it would be better if you would have a revius of mayim after you cleanse your hands. Ois Katan Yud Ches, the Mechaber said that you take a little bit of the water to take away the lichluch, to take away the dirt. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what does that mean? Kemai tit, like mud, v'kiyoytza bazeh, or anything like that. Davar hachoytzeitz b'netila. If you have something on your hand that's a bona fide chatzitza, you need to use some of the water to remove the chatzitza. The lichluch she'enoi choytzitz, because if we're talking about dirt that does not make a chatzitza, ain't tzarich la'asirah klal koydem hanetila. You don't have to remove it from your hands before the Netillas Yadayim. Now, this is a very important point. You see sometimes some people who go to wash the Netillas Yadayim, and they're being very OCD, and they're looking over their hands like with a microscope. Let's remember, what's the din of a chatzitza? Midaraisa, a chatzitza is ruba umakpid, something that's covering the majority of your hand, and you're makpid on it. That's a chatzitza daraisa. Midarabanan, a miut umakpid is also a chatzitza. So if you have a little dirt on only part of your hand, even far less than roiv, it could also be a chatzitza if you're makpid. Now, you're not makpid on a speck of dirt, okay? So if you have to analyze your hand with a magnifying glass to check if you have something on your hand that's a miut umakpid, that's a neurosis that has nothing to do with the Netillas Yadayim. That's a different issue. So you don't have to do that. We're looking for something that's a chatzitza. If there's something that's a chatzitza, you have to remove it from your hand before the Netillas Yadayim. If it's not a chatzitza, you don't. Okay. Now let's go weiter in the Mechaber here, top line, Nun Zayin Amud Beis. So the Mechaber started off, he said, you're washing the Netillas Yadayim, you have a revius of mayim. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to pour a little water on your hand to remove any possible chatzitza. Then, says the Mechaber, v'achakach, after you do that, shoyfech aleim pam shenis, now you're going to pour a second pour on your hand. Now that pour is what we've been referring to until now as the mayim harishonim. That pour is going to remove the tumah from your hand. V'gam, and says the Mechaber about that water, v'gam elu hamayim heim tmeim. Now that water is tamei water. After you pour the mayim harishonim on your hands, any remnant, any remains of that mayim harishonim that are on your hands are tamei. This is something that we've discussed already quite a bit. And therefore, says the Mechaber, v'achar kach, after that second pour, the mayim harishonim, shoyfech aleim pam shlishis, now you're going to pour a third time, letaher hamayim she'al gabe hayodayim, in order to be metaher the mayim harishonim. So, what the Mechaber said so far, and of course this is a chiddush to us, we don't do this, we don't wash 3 times. We wash 2 times. But what the Mechaber said so far is, you have a revius of mayim, you're coming to wash the Netillas Yadayim, first pour a little bit of water on your hand in order to wash away any chatzitza that might be on your hand. Then wash mayim harishonim. Mayim harishonim takes the tumah off the hands, but now that mayim is tamei, so you have tamei mayim on your hand. Then pour mayim shniyim. What does the mayim shniyim do? The mayim shniyim are mitaher the mayim harishonim. It takes the tumah off the mayim harishonim, so now there's no more tumah left on your hand. Continues the mechaber. V'im ein bayadayim lichluch v'davar achoytzeitz. Now, if you don't have any dirt on your hand, if you don't have any chatzitzits on your hand, shayfach al shtei yadav revius babas achas, then what you could do is, if you have somebody else to wash the Netillas Yadayim for you, you could give him the kais, hold out your hands, and let him pour the whole revius on your hand at one time. Ve'enoi tzarich mayim shniim. And then you don't even need mayim shniim. So again, what did the mechaber just say? The mechaber told me about 3 washings. But the mechaber is telling you, realize why I'm telling you need 3 washings. The reason I'm telling you need 3 washings is because you started off with the revius mitzumtzum. You used a little bit of the revius to remove any chatzitzas. Once you used a little bit of the revius to wash away any chatzitzas, now there's no possibility anymore of washing the Netillas Yadayim with the revius bebasakas, with the revius in one time, because you already used a little bit of the revius. So you don't have a full revius in the kais anymore. Since you don't have a full revius in the kais anymore, so now what you have to do is you have to wash mayim rishonim. That mayim rishonim is going to be tamei, and then you're going to have to wash mayim shniim to be metaher the mayim rishonim. However, says the mechaber, let's say, same scenario. You're in the park, you want to wash on your tuna fish sandwich, you look at your hands, and you see you have no chatzitzis on your hands. If you have no chatzitzis on your hands, so then you don't need a little bit of the water to wash away any chatzitzis. If you don't need any of the water to wash away any chatzitza, so then you have the possibility of giving the Netillas Yadayim cup to another person and having him pour the entire revius on your hands at one shot. In that case, you only need 1 pour. Why? Because that pour is going to be mayim rishonim, but since it's a full revius, it doesn't become tamei. Because like we've explained many times, when you wash with a full revius, the full revius is a din of a mikveh. So the tumah goes poof, there's no more tumah here, and the mayim rishonim aren't tamei. If the mayim rishonim aren't tamei, you don't need mayim shniim. So now you went down to 1 pour. Continues the mechaber. No, let's stop over here, right before the Ramah. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting your test. Haim Timeim. This is the mechaber said that if you're going to do 3 pours, if you're going to do first a little water to take away a chatzitza, and then mayim harishonim, so you're washing mayim harishonim with less than a revius, so then the mechaber said that the mayim harishonim themselves are tamei. Says the Mishnah Berurah, and he's really going to spell out over here, and he's cutting your test. Really, he's just repeating the mechanics that we've already learned many times. Says the mechaber, says the Mishnah Berurah, he's cutting your test. Techein isa b'Masechtas Yadayim. If you take a look at the very first Mishnah in Masechtas Yadayim, Perek Aleph Mishnah Aleph, Hanoitel Yadav tzarech lishpaich shtei pa'amim al Yadav. Somebody washes the Netillas Yadayim, he has to pour twice on his hands. Mayim harishonim and then mayim shniim. Says the Mishnah Berurah in the brackets, Hainu af kishem nikiyim b'loy lichluch. Even if the hands are perfectly clean, with no dirt, the Mishnah suggests, the first Mishnah of Masechtas Yadayim, that you need 2 pours of water on your hand. Why do you need 2? The mayim harishonim b'tarim hayadayim. This is not spelled out in the Mishnah, actually. If you look at the Mishnah is a little bit vague, but the Rav, the Berurah, spells this out. He says, the mayim harishonim metaharim hayadayim. The first pour, the mayim harishonim takes the tumah off the hands. It's metar the hands. Aval heim atzmam timeim heim. But the water of the mayim harishonim, once it makes contact with the hand, that water becomes tamei. Shenitma'u b'negiyasam biyadav. They become tamei by virtue of contacting the hands that were tamei. Now the big chiddush over here is that the mayim harishonim take the tumah off the hands. The mayim harishonim become tamei, but like we've said, those tamei mayim rishonim they're not re-mitame the hands. The hands remain tar. Very fascinating. Vashniim, and now the mayim shniim, mitarim oisan, they're mitar the mayim rishonim, the nigmar taras yadayim, and now through the pouring of the mayim rishonim, and then the mayim shniim, now Netillas Yadayim is finished, and the hands are completely tar. Umiyu, nevertheless, however, Kasav Beis Yosef b'shem kama paiskim, the Beis Yosef writes in the name of many paiskim, Tehu dafkim lo shafach haravias babas akas al shtei yadav. This idea that you need two steps, that you need the mayim rishonim to take the tumah off the hands, and then the mayim rishonim become tamei, and then you need mayim shniim to be mitar the mayim rishonim. That idea is only if you're not using a revius babas achas. If you're using part of a revius and then another part of a revius, you're not using a whole revius in one shot. What you're doing is you're washing one hand, then the other hand, so you're not washing with the revius babas achas. Miktas alzeh, you're using part of revius on this hand, or miktas alzeh, part of revius on this hand. Oy shenachsar me'ar revius, or if you don't have a full revius anymore, because you used up some lahavaras halichlach for the first washing to take away a chatzitza, the canal. Tzarich lishbach shnei pa'amim. That's when you need mayim rishonim and mayim shneim. Avol kisheshafach harevius babas akas al shtei yadav. But if you use a full revius on both hands, the cholshkein, and certainly al kol akas revius, certainly if you use a full revius on each hand, then ain't tzarich l'mayim shniyim l'taram. Then you don't need mayim shniyim to be mitar the mayim rishonim. The ain't kad mayim tameim, because then you have no mayim tameim. The mayim rishonim are not tamei ukidul kamei, and like we're going to see further on. Okay, so let's just recap what the Mishnah said over here, even though it's really, again, there's no chidushim here, after what we've said already over and over and over again in the last several shiurim. There's two different scenarios over here. One scenario is where you have exactly a revius, and you're not able to use that revius bebas achas in one shot. Why not? Well, there could be several reasons. One is you have a chatzitza on your hand. If you have a chatzitza on your hand, you need to use a little bit of the water first to remove the chatzitza. Once you do that, you don't have a revius anymore. So in that case, you need mayim rishonim to take the tumah off the hands. The mayim rishonim themselves are going to become tamei. You need mayim shneim to be mitar the mayim rishonim. Or, let's say you have a revius and you don't have a chatzitza on your hand, but you're all alone, and it's very difficult for you. There's no way for you to figure out how to wash both of your hands in one shot using a full revius on both hands at one shot. Just practically, how are you going to do it? You don't have a way to do it. So what you're going to do is you're going to use some of the water on one hand, some of the water on the other hand, so you're not washing with a revius babas achas. That's when you need mayim rishonim and mayim shneim. However, let's say you have plenty of water. You have a big 1 gallon bottle of Poland spring water. You got plenty of water. So you're going to wash a nice revius on the right hand, a nice revius or more on the other hand. Then technically, says the Mechaber, you don't need mayim rishonim and mayim shneim. Once you pour a revius on your hand, the tumah goes off your hand and it does not go into the water. The tumah vanishes. So then technically you don't need mayim shneim. But let's see the Mishnah here, Ois Kat Chaf. Shlishes letaher. You're going to have a third pour to be mitar the mayim rishonim. What's the Mechaber going on here? The Mechaber is going on the case where you did one pour to clean off a chatzitza, then you did a second pour of mayim rishonim, then you did a third pour of mayim shlishim. So the shlishes, the third pour, is really the mayim shneim. That's the pour that's being mitar the mayim rishonim. So it says the Mishnah here, nice cut and chaf, shlishes letaher. You have a third pour. That's the mayim shneim that's being mitar the mayim rishonim. V'heim nikram shneim be'etzam hanetila. Really, this third pour is what we call Mayim Shneim. This is really the Mayim Shneim that are coming to be Matar the Mayim Rishonim. The Pam Rishon Shechashav Kan, because the very first pour that we're talking about over here, Einam Etzem HaNetila. That's not really Be'etzem, a part of the Netillas Yadayim. Ela Lahavaras HaLichluch V'chanal. That was only to remove a chatzitza. That's why we're calling the second pour the Mayim Rishonim, because the real Netillas Yadayim pours are the second pour and the third pour. The first one is just to clean off the chatzitza. Vedan, you should know, says the Mishnah Berurah, this concept that you could do 3 pours on each hand from one revius, you have to make sure, listen, you're doing 6 pours now from one revius of mayim. You have to make sure that you get the water everywhere where it has to go. It's got to go all around your fingers, all around your hand, everywhere that you need to wash. I'll call panim b'shtei apamim, at least for the mayim rishonim and the mayim shneim. The original pour, to take off the chatzitza, over there you don't have to pour water all over your hand. You can just pour it onto the chatzitza. Ois kat l'chaf aleph, the Mechaber said, but if you use a revius babas achas, if you could use the whole revius in one shot, then you don't even need mayim shneim. Then you only need 1 pour. If you don't have a chatzitza on your hand, and you have another party to pour the whole revius on both of your hands in one shot, so fine. Let him pour a revius babas achas on both your hands, and now you don't need mayim shneim, because the mayim rishonim won't be tameh. The tumah vanishes in the revius of mayim. And here's where the Mishnah Berurah spells out how that works. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kat l'chaf aleph, revius babas achas, hatam, the reason for this is, the revius babas achas, when we wash the Netillas Yadayim with a full revius at one shot, asa'u kemikva dibitaheres. That water gets the din of a mikvah. V'gam hamayim tahirim heim. So the water itself is tar. Like I keep on saying, the same way when a person is tameh and he goes and he's toivel in a mikvah, we don't say that the tumah goes off him, goes into the mikvah, and now you have to drain the mikvah. No, the tumah vanishes. If you wash the Netillas Yadayim with a full revius, the tumah vanishes. Well, kach ain't tzarich l'mayim shneim, and that's why you wouldn't need mayim shneim. In a case where a person had a chatzitza on his hands, so then you had to use a little bit of the revius to take away the chatzitza, and now you don't have a full revius left, so then you're forced to have mayim shneim, because you don't have a full revius. And you should know, very important few lines here in the Mishnah Berurah, because if we would stop the shear right now, you would be left with epis. You would say to yourself, Rabbi Weiss, I know that everybody goes to wash the Netillas Yadayim, they wash twice on their right hand and then twice on their left hand. Nobody washes 3 times. So what's all of this about 3 times? And what came out from the Mechaber is that, no, really, you only need the 3 times if you have a chatzitza on your hand. If you know you don't have a chatzitza on your hand, so then you don't need 3. Then you only need 2, which is what we do. Mayim rishonim and then mayim shneim. And as a matter of fact, said the Mechaber, really, we have running water in the sink, and we have big Netillas Yadayim cups, so we have the complete ability to wash each hand with more than a revius. We don't need to wash twice. Why do we need to wash twice? Fill up the Netillas Yadayim cup, pour a revius on the right hand, and then pour a revius on the left hand, and you're done. Why do we wash twice? We don't need mayim rishonim and mayim shneim. We usually wash with far more than a revius. A revius is, 3 to 5 ounces? We use those big Netillas Yadayim cups. How many ounces do those cups hold? A lot more than 10 ounces. So what's the problem? Why do we use 4 pours? 1 pour on each hand should be enough. So says the Mishnah Berurah, V'dan, you should know. There are those that say, most notably this is a Shitas Haravid, there are those that say, Deminadin tzarich la'olam mayim shniyim. They disagree with this Bechaber. This Bechaber is going like the Rishonim, who say that you only need mayim Rishonim and mayim shniyim if you're washing with less than a revius. If you're washing with more than a revius is a mikveh. Right away by the first pour, the tumah vanishes. You don't need mayim shniyim. But the Ravid disagrees. The Ravid learns Pshat in the first Mishnah in Yadayim. The Ravid says you always need 2 pours on each hand. It doesn't matter how much water you have. And Pshat in the Ravid, from the admittedly limited amount of research that I did now, Pshat in the Ravid seems to be, let's remember the whole basis for the Netillas Yadayim. Let's take you back to the beginning of Hilchos Netillas Yadayim. The whole basis of the Netillas Yadayim is we're afraid a kohen is going to go eat truma with dirty hands. Case I always gave is the kohen is an auto mechanic. He just finished changing an alternator and his hands are all greasy. He goes to picks up his tuna fish sandwich that his wife made him, and the bread is truma. And he gets grease on the sandwich. He looks at the sandwich, I can't eat that, got grease on it. So he throws it out. You know what that is? Hefsid truma. We don't want hefsid truma. How are we going to make sure the Kohanim eat truma with clean hands? Very simple. We're going to tell the Kohanim that stam yadayim ashniyos l'tuma. If stam yadayim ashniyos l'tuma, a Kohen can't touch truma with unwashed hands. If he does, he passels the truma. So now the Kohen knows that he must wash his hands before he goes to eat truma. Then we wanted to make sure that the Kohanim are going to be nizar in this. So we said, you know what? We're not going to leave this only to the Kohanim, because if it's a din that's unique to the Kohanim, then it's something that you don't see. Imagine if when you went to a chasana, the only people who are washing are the Kohanim. Then some Kohanim might not wash either. We're going to make Gans Klal Yisrael wash on Pas. If Gans Klal Yisrael washes on Pas, then we're really protecting the truma. So when you get down to it, right, the underpinning of the whole gzeira of the Netillas Yadayim was the greasy hands of the kohen who changed an alternator. So it's dirt. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all predicated on dirty hands, right? So the Ravid says you always need 2 washes. You know why? Because sometimes when you have dirty hands, the first pour makes the dirt wet and loosens up the dirt. The second pour washes away the dirt. So the Ravid doesn't look at it so much in DNA Tum and Tahara. He looks at it a little bit more practically, dinam of washing the hands. Therefore, says the Ravid, I don't care if you're washing with more than a revius. Even if you wash with more than a revius, you always need 2 washings. So let's jump back here into the Mishnah Berurah, second wide line down. V'dan, you should know the Yeshar. Remember that there are those that say there are those that say that you always need mayim shniyim even if you wash with a full revius. V'emein lo rak revius, and if you only have an exact revius, yishpaich mimena b'shtei pamim. You shouldn't use it for 1 pour on both hands. You should use it in 2 shots, because you always need 2 washings. Va'afilu im noitel revius babasachas oyal kol yad v'yad revius b'fnei atzmai. And even if you're going to pour a full revius even on each hand, tzarich achakach gam ke mayim shniyim, you always need mayim shniyim. The cost of a chayodam, and the chayodam writes, T'yesh linoi kain litel revius al kol yad v'gam shniyim. The chayodam says we should be nizar to wash each hand with a full revius and still wash mayim shniyim. V'chol zehu rak lechatchila, but that's only lechatchila im yesh lo mayim mezumanim, if you have plenty of available water. Aval litroyach achar zeh, but to go be matriach, to make sure you have enough water to wash each hand twice, nira de ein tzarich. You don't need to do that. The Reva Paiskim Ekelu bazeh, most Paiskim are Mekel, ukistim asar b'chaber, and like the b'chaber, it writes here in the Shulchan Aruch, to be revius babas achas, if you use a revius in 1 shot, ein tzarich l'shniyim, you don't need mayim shniyim, v'chein nira das ha'achreinim, and that seems to be the opinion of Rav ha'achreinim. Now let's go back into the Shulchan Aruch, third line down, the words of the Ramah, and let's finish the Sif. Hagal says the Ramah, "V'hu adinim hayuloi mayim rabim." If you have plenty of water, roichitz tchilamat kedei lahasar alechlach. Again, this that the Mechaber spoke about, pouring 3 times on your hands. If you have a sink and you want to wash the Netillas Yadayim, and you just came in from the garden and you have dirt on your hands, you don't have to fill up the Netillas Yadayim cup and wash once to wash away the chatzitza, and then wash a second time for Mayim Rishonim, and then a third time for Mayim Shneim. No, go to the sink, take a little soap, wash your hands. Now your hands are clean. Now that your hands are clean, and there's no chatzitza, wash Mayim Rishonim and then Mayim Shneim. So that's what the Ramah says. V'hu adin im hayulon Mayim rabim. You have plenty of water. Roichitz tchilamat kedei lahasar alechlach. Wash your hand first to take away the dirt. V'achakach shefech revius ke'echad. And then me'ikar adin, you could just pour a revius on your hand, and you don't even need Mayim Shneim, because you use the full revius for the Mayim Rishonim. The Mayim Rishonim aren't tamei. Ve'nei tzarich Mayim Shlishim. It's not chok v'lo yavor that you need 3 pours on each hand. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Chav Beis, Mayim Rabim, if you have plenty of water, Hainu afilu rak ma'at yosim revius. When the Ramah says plenty of water, he means even if you just have a little bit more than a revius. Bichtei sheyeh lo lahasar alichlach. If you have a couple of ounces more than a revius, but it's enough to take away the chatzitza, so you don't have to fill up the cup and pour. Just take a little water, wash away the chatzitza, and then wash the Netillas Yadayim with a full revius, and you don't even need Mayim Shneim. V'yishar revius l'shneim. V'chein ner hainu afilu rak ma'at yosim revius b'chtei sheyeh lo lahasar alichlach. V'yishar ha-revius shleima. Okay, now we come to a very strange din. Let's finish the Ramah here. Says the Ramah, 4th line down, near the end of the line. Says the Ramah, Netillas Yadav, when somebody washes the Netillas Yadayim, tzarich l'shafshefam zu b'zu. After washing Mayim Rishonim and Mayim Shneim, he has to take his hands and rub his hands together. Okay? Ramah doesn't say why. He brings this down from the Rambam. He brings it down from the Kolbai, the Smag, the Rush. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Eis Katan Chav Gimel. Tzarich l'shafshefam. You have to rub your hands together. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Hainu afilu natal revius al kol yad v'yad. This is true. Even if you pour a full revius on each hand, afterwards you have to rub your hands together. And not only that, says the Mishnah Berurah, v'chein mematpil yadav. If you do Netillas Yadayim, after you do Netillas Yadayim, rub your hands together. Last Mishnah Berurah, says the Mishnah Berurah, zu b'zu, Eis Katan Chav Daled, nirishu kedei lahavra lichluch heitev heitev. Why are you doing this? Why are you rubbing your hands together? Says the Chavetz Chaim, it appears to him that the reason you're rubbing your hands together is in order to wash away any possible lichluch. Now, I mean, okay, let's just finish the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says, "V'hu rak lechatchila." This is only a din lechatchila. V'loy li'ikuva. Certainly, if you didn't do it, it's not ma'akiv. V'ayin b'bach, and he tells you to take a look at the bach. Okay, that's the end of the Ramah. That's the end of the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah said, after the Netillas Yadayim, do shifshuf, rub your hands together. Says the Mishnah Berurah, why are you doing this? He says, it appears that the reason you're doing this is to take away any possible dirt. What? I mean, first of all, when are you doing this? Now, Rabbi say, it has to be that you're doing this after Mayim Shneim. You can't do this after Mayim Rishonim, and I'll tell you why. Imagine this. Imagine you washed Mayim Rishonim on your right hand. And then after you washed Mayim Rishonim on your right hand, you touched your left hand. Oh boy, do you have a problem. That's going to be a Beferish Mechaber, I think, in tomorrow's share. It's going to be a Beferish Mechaber. If you do that, you got a big problem. Because now you have to dry this hand. If you don't dry this hand from the water that came from this hand, even if you washed the Netillas Yadayim in this hand, it doesn't work. If you washed your right hand, Mayim Rishonim, and then you took your right hand that's wet from Mayim Rishonim, and you touched your left hand and made your left hand wet with Mayim Rishonim that came from the right hand, even if you go wash the Netillas Yadayim in your left hand, now it won't work. Now we'll get into why, but it won't work. You have to dry off your left hand from that mayim rishonim from the right hand before you can wash Netillas Yadayim. So you're not doing this shifshuf after mayim rishonim. You have to do this shifshuf after mayim shneim. So now, what exactly are the mechanics of this shifshuf? You washed mayim rishonim on your right hand. You washed mayim shneim on your right hand. You washed mayim rishonim on your left hand. You washed mayim shneim on your left hand. Your hands are tahor. You're not doing any more Netillas Yadayim. Now you're rubbing your hands to wipe away dirt? What, chatzitza? And let's say there was a chatzitza, now you're wiping it away. You're not washing Netillas Yadayim again. So obviously you're not worried about a chatzitza. So what is this shivshuf? What is this all about? The Mishnah Berurah just like blanked out. The Chavetz Chaim decided not to go into this, really. I mean, he really didn't go into it. He just, wrote a couple of very basic lines here in the Sharetzion. He brings it down from a Taz. The very scant, very, very, very scant information over here in the Chavetz Chaim. Comes along the Aruch HaShulchan, and the Aruch HaShulchan is like, blown away. He doesn't know what this is all about. Kasav Rabbeinu Ramah B'Sif Beis HaNetillas Yadayim Tzarich L'Shafshif Him Zeh B'Zeh. After you wash Netillas Yadayim, you gotta wipe them together on Kan L'Shoner. The Kasav HaTorah, the Torah writes, Afilu Im Shafach Al Kol Yad Revius. This is true even if you wash with a full Revius. Ulechein, and therefore, Afilu Matbil Benar Tzav Shifshuf. Even Tfilas Yadayim you need Shifshuf. Shaharei Revius Hazek Tfila. Okay. V'reisi be'emes misha tama bazeh. The Aruch HaShulchan says, I've seen people who reacted wonderment about this. Shifshuf Zelama. What is this for? Imishon Tahara, if you're doing this shifshuf for Taharas Yadayim, Kvar Nitarau Yadayim. You already finished Netillas Yadayim, your hands are already tar. What are you doing this shifshuf for? Void, Im Adayin Loi Nitaru, and if the hands are in tahar somehow, if the Mayim Rishonim and Mayim Shneim, Eich Yitaru Mishifshuf Zeh. How is this shifshuf Yadayim bringing about tahara? What is it all about? And if you're doing it to take off dirt, you must have already taken away the dirt, otherwise how did you wash Netillas Yadayim? So the Aruch HaShulchan brings down, he says, there are those that want to say that when the Ramah talks about shifshuf over here, you know what he means? He doesn't mean that you take your wet hands and you rub them together. He means you take a towel and you dry your hands. He's talking about niguf. He's talking about drying your hands. After you wash Mayim Rishonim and Mayim Shneim, you completed the Netillas Yadayim. Now, says the Ramah, now you got to dry your hands. So some want to learn that way. Some learn that this is like an extra madrega of tahara somehow. But whatever it is, this is very vague. And but be that as it may, that's what the Ramah says. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. Schos of limud HaTorah should be made, and I got Sklal Yisrael. The Berurrah should send Yeshua's refuahs, parnasa and shidduchim to all those in need. We should be zeichet to see the bias goyel tzedek b'meherev yameinu with the geula shlema, not a geula porta. We want a geula shlema, and Rabbi say it's so important for everybody in this matzav to remember. It's so tempting to get into conversations and talk about what does the United States say, and what do these ones say, and what's going on in the United Nations. We have to remember it's all not negeya. It's all not negeya. It's all not negeya. There's only one day of Zogger. The only day of Zogger is the Rabbeinu Shalom. No one else is a day of Zogger. Not Netanyahu, not Biden, not Erdogan, not Esposito, whatever his name is, from the United Nations. That none of them are Deyazoggers. They're all not Negeya. They're not Negeya. They're Kekash L'fnei Ruach. They're meaningless. Mamish meaningless. It's not even worth getting upset about. It's a gate in Lebanon. I'm not saying that I don't get upset when I hear about it, but the truth is it's not even worth getting upset about. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. They're not Negeya. Okay, maybe I'll make an extra video about that as well. But, yeah, Thank you for joining me for limud HaTorah. Be well.